Ruin your day. Breathe easier, sleep better, and feel healthier with Navage. Visit Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, or a store near you.
7:42 Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. 67th and Cass in Darien. Report of an accident this morning. Delays on the South Shore line westbound from Millennium Station. You've got 20-minute delays due to mechanical trouble there this morning. Probably heat related. I-80 solid traffic eastbound, Hobart into Larkin. The Reagan I-88 delays eastbound between Cermak and the Tri-State this morning. The Tri-State itself jamming up northbound from the Stevenson, between the Stevenson and the Hinsdale Oasis. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Partly sunny, very hot. There could be a strong afternoon thunderstorm, high 97. Warm, humid, with a strong thunderstorm possible overnight, low 73. 79 right now. Next news at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. As Mike Scott's been reporting, the grades are in. The Illinois State Board of Education's most recent Illinois report card. The Illinois State Board of Education, to repeat. 27% of Illinois' K through 12 kids are meeting grade level in math, 35% meeting grade level in English.
Are we supposed to celebrate that?
Yeah.
27 math, 35% English?
Mm-hmm. It's not bad. So let's see if I could do the math. I think I'm at grade level. So approximately 3 of 4 kids are failing to meet grade level standards in math, and approximately 2 in 3 kids are failing to meet grade level in English. And that's going to work out well for them and for the systems. But my school's great. Love my school district. It's just happening in Chicago. No, it's not. You can't get these numbers if it's just happening in Chicago. Oh, Chicago and some of the poor communities. Nope. You still can't get those numbers. Keep going. Also this. Hey, anybody seen my kids? Anybody seen the kids? What happened to all the kids that used to go to this school? Chronic absenteeism rate of 28%. That's up from 16% pre-COVID. So 28%. So let's round down to be generous. That's 1 in 4 in a system of like 2 million kids. That's a lot of kids that aren't going to school. And I guess, based on these numbers, what's the point anyway? Keep up appearances? Ted Dabrowski, President Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related, joins us. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy.
So what's happened? Have we defunded the schools? We need to spend more money? Is that what the problem is?
Yeah, it's always more money. I was just looking as you were talking at the amount of money that's going into CPS. We all know the 30,000 number, 30,000 per student, but in 2017 it was just 17,000. So you're talking about a 75% increase in just a few years, and nobody's going to school. The reading results are about the same. The math results are worse. I guess you couldn't spell a worse disaster on something that we spend so much money on that in theory is so important to the unions and the teachers, and it's just a disaster.
And the suburbs, I know you guys, at Wirepoints, you guys did the report card for every school district, and people were shocked. I remember, I keep referencing them, and now it's a good time to re-reference them. Shocked that, the school districts, the best schools, and say, oh, great government schools in New Trier, and Barrington, and so forth, Naperville. And it turns out they're pulling up the average, but you have 1 in 3, 1 in 4 kids in the best high schools, in the so-called best high schools in the state, places like New Trier and Barrington and Naperville and Glenbard, where a quarter to a third to half of the students there are not at grade level in reading or math either.
Yeah, I still remember. I think I told this story, but we just put out the numbers last year, and 43% of kids in Arlington Heights, or this District 214, it was 43% can read at grade level. And I got a phone call from somebody in the movement, somebody who's on our side, and said, Ted, you're wrong. That's just bad data. And I felt bad because I thought I made a mistake or something. So I looked at the data, and no, it's 43%. And this dad had thought that this school had been just, like the cream of the cream, and this is the best place, to send your kids. And, the reality is across the state, I'm not talking about in many, many places. You're talking about Wheaton, you're talking about a lot of places where, it is, 4 out of 10, 5, maybe 5 out of 10 if it's a good. We think of 5 out of 10, half of our kids reading at grade level is suddenly good these days. And it's not until you remember that half of them can't read at grade level. So it's a horrible path. Kids aren't going to school, but the one stat that we didn't talk about is also teachers aren't showing up for school either. That's gotten really bad as well. And so,
if kids aren't there, why should the teachers show up? What's the point?
Yeah, well, and I tell you, this is I don't know how it happens, right? But we're seeing this boom in school choice across the country. Red states in particular. It's just universal school choice is starting to dominate every type of school choice program out there, and we're surrounded by them now in Illinois. So we're surrounded by a lot of good things. God knows when the pressure finally comes on to change here. But the good news is that there's something out there for us to do one day. It's not happening now under Pritzker, but one day we can do it.
What happens to the rest? You have the 43% who are reading at grade level. What happens to the rest? Do they just pass them no matter what?
Yeah, Amy, that's the big thing, right? So in the third grade, that's the key year. That's the year that if you can't read in third grade, then you're in big trouble in fifth and sixth because you just can't do the other subjects. And so Florida passed, and then Mississippi did too. They've had this miracle there. They said we're not going to pass kids to the fourth grade if they can't read in the third, and that's a big deal because parents don't like that. Teachers are embarrassed that they can't move their kid to the next grade. But it's been a big deal. But here in Illinois, it doesn't matter. You take Peoria, you take Decatur, you take Rockford. 5%, 7% of kids can read in the third grade. And you know what? Move them along anyway. It doesn't matter, and nobody cares. And that's what's so pathetic about what's going on here.
Well, I mean, is it a big deal? Maybe the standards are too high. They can read, they just can't read at grade level, and maybe that's not such a big deal. Maybe it's too exacting, and we should, recap. We should rethink how we measure these things because they could be, like Stacey Davis Gates makes the point. The way we're measuring could be a vestige of white supremacy.
It's just racist. No, yeah, I tell you what's fascinating is a lot of states have gotten rid of standards, especially for graduation. It used to be that you had to prove you could graduate before you get a diploma. Now most states have just wiped that out. There's very few states now that require some kind of testing. But I'll tell you that where I get fired up from is as I look at this data. There are a few districts in the state, and I've talked about them. They're down in the in the southwest corner down there by East St. Louis, farming towns. And you'll find there communities that spend $8,000, $9,000 a student. And you'll have 80% of kids reading there. So they don't have any money. They figure out how to do it. They all get together. They work hard. They compete. And they have 80% of kids reading at grade level with little money. And what it tells you is that when the community comes together, when parents and the schools come together and work together and want their kids to read, they can do it. It's not some mystery. It's not some hard test.
Well,
where they get together and do it.
Well, right. And so the absenteeism rate, 28% system-wide, this year, according to the Illinois State Board of Education. In CPS, it's 40% chronic absenteeism. So, I mean, you have a school district that's shrinking to begin with. Maybe there's, I don't know what, maybe 225,000 kids left in CPS. And 40% of them aren't showing up on a routine basis, according to the Illinois State Board of Education. And they're not going to, because you can spend $30,000 per kid, you can spend $50,000 per kid, you can spend whatever number you want. There's no adult supervision at home or in school.
No, and that's right. It's nobody seems to care. There's a lot to be said about the parents' obligations, parents' role, and we know we have a big social problem there, no doubt about that. And that in itself is one topic. But I do try to separate the topics because, how we talk about parents and what their role is one thing. The other part, though, is when we spend $30,000 a student to educate our kids and they don't do anything about it, the teachers don't show up for class, CPS just moves them along. That's another thing, and that's the part that we need to hold them accountable for. They're happy to take the money, they're happy to strike, they're happy to do whatever they need to do to get their end of the deal, but they don't really care about the other end of the deal, and that's educating kids. It's why most kids, and especially when you talk about the minority kids, they can't read and they can't do math. Most of them, the overwhelming amount of them can't.
And when we look around the country, I mean, they always cry poor because they play this game of just looking on what the state financing of K through 12 education is rather than the total, which includes the primary source for most school districts, of course, property taxes. So, when you include that, we've always been in the top 10 in spending per pupil. When you include all the funding sources, including property taxes, I assume we still are. And where do we fall in terms of the proficiency rates in reading and math?
We fall okay. So we fall in the middle in proficiency. So we're not that different. We probably have a bit more dispersion around the mean because you got the North Shore that does really well, and then you got the Peorias and the Decaturs that do really poorly. But we're kind of middling. But when it comes to spending, we spend by far the most in the Midwest. I mean, we dominate the 14 states in the Midwest in spending, and we're typically around 10th, 9th, 10th overall nationally on when you take state, local, and federal. So, I'll tell you this: we spend about $7,000 more per student than Florida does, and they do about the same as we do.
Mm-hmm. And so, it's an indictment of government. And then the fact that that's the case, I mean, in terms of proficiency rates, that's an indictment of K through 12 government schools generally, nationally, and it speaks to some of these other endemic problems we have with the skill levels of young people and the prospects for young people in the global digital world in which we live.
Well, yeah, and there's two things, right? One is the national failure of across the board of how we teach kids, what we demand of kids, merit, excellence, all that. That's one. But then two is Illinois is special in that it extracts a ton more money to get the same results as the rest of the country. Mm-hmm. And Illinois is really good at that. It's also about $7,000 more per student than Indiana, and they do about the same, or maybe slightly better than we do. So when you think about if you were to give back a tax break of everybody with $7,000 per student back to the public, it'd be a massive tax cut for people, and we'd have the same results, maybe even better.
Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Suburban Welding and Steel is your local welding, fabricating, and repair shop where service and quality is